Welcome to YuGiOh something, and in today's video, wait a minute, BIP Bizarre Interest Productions, and Zexal's first episode aired on April 11th, 2011 in Japan, and 2011 plus 15 is 2026. Oh crap, it really is Zexal's 15th anniversary, at least a weekend of it. Okay, I should actually do something about that. Top 10 Yu-Gi-Oh! Zexal duels we saw, because, wait, Yu-Gi-Oh! Everything didn't do it for Zexal? Go Rush I get, but it kind of seems like everyone dueled almost everyone in that show, but not Zexal? Oh, okay, to be fair, most of the big duels and matchups kind of happened. Chaos Destruction talked about a few ones or ideas he would do when he talked about changing the second trilogy. And Infernape Shinjo did too. He only gave him 54 views? They've been talking about Yu-Gi-Oh! Longer than I have. Anyway, so to celebrate, let's do a proper top 10. No, top 15. Top 20? Screw it, top 25. We're not losing any sleep today. Zexal is a series where everyone was used just enough, but it could have been, some of them could have gotten a bit more to do. So I'm basically doing a combination of duels that have interesting matchups, duels that could have been fun to watch, duels that could have made sense for the story, or to just give some characters something to do. This is going to be a long one, so expect Ryo and Durber to show up at least twice or 3 times. And type happy 15th anniversary Zexal, or Ryo deserved better. And let's get started. Alright, 25, the Numbers Club versus the Barry and Brainwash students. Believe it or not, I actually don't have many members of the Numbers Club on this list anywhere, and it's not because I hate them. It's just like I said before, had they been using gathering or finding numbers on and off screen after the debut episode and between episodes, I feel like people would value them a bit more. But they kind of struggle against any opponent that has Baron level powers. So I remember that huge horde of duelists in episode 85 that Yuma, Shark, Ryo, and later Alita fought. I'd say have the Numbers Club join them, leading to this all-out civil war in the school where some of them win, but they also lose a few times, similar to the Ghost Invasion Primo calls in 5Ds. It at least gives some of them a 1 win, since they should have gotten at least a bit stronger to take on students who aren't going to be that strong, just slightly stronger thanks to the Barian powers, but still. 24, Dextra and Nistro versus Mr. Heartland. This one kind of writes itself. You basically turned them into child soldiers, and the first half of the series you saw in flashback, so well, I don't think a duel would fit in season 1, considering that he comes back as like the heavy antagonist for season 5 second half. Even if some of it was off of screen, I'm surprised they didn't take the opportunity to just have him get a win by taking on his former subordinates. I guess it would technically ruin the impact of everyone coming back together in the last arc to fight the Barons and dying, but I do feel like they would try to hold the fort until Kaito arrives. 23, Anna versus Ryo. Okay, Anna is like the only other character I might have at least like twice that makes sense, but correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe in Duel Links these two had an interaction. But in show, these two are the more strong-willed women in Zexal's cast who have fought Barry and possessed people twice, and is skilled enough to go up against anyone that's not powered by either world until Marok. So you could make the argument that they're on a decent skill field without Barrian powers, and this one could basically be a friendly duel because they don't really have a reason to hate each other, but they never really interacted all that much, so it could be fun. 22, Nistro / Gosh versus 4 or Quattro. One of the more interesting aspects of Zexal that some of the other seasons kind of struggled with at times is that they committed to having a 3-way power structure between the heroes, the Faker faction, and the Tron family, which might be the strongest 3-way faction war we've had in the franchise since the rival does have an organization behind him. But one of the minor issues is that the quote-unquote villains never really go after each other most of the time, with Kaito being the only one who consistently fights the Tron family. And Nistro does try to actually take care of security and do his job before they decide to enter the tournament. So finding out that 4 is going overboard, hurting his fans and other opponents in the match, should be reasonable grounds for Nistro to try to duel or fight him. 4 probably wins this, but it would fill the tension between the two groups since they don't really interact until the top 8s. Alright, 21, Astro versus Nash. Real talk, I didn't have a set order for this video, but the only reason I hesitated on putting this one on the list was because Yuma and Astro worked together, and the latter was more willing to defeat Nash, so I'm thinking the duel would just go down almost the same, except Yuma isn't there, but that means Nash would probably win because Yuma and Astro were considering attacking until Yuma refused, and that caused Nash to duel. But without him, I'm curious about the dialogue and interaction, since both of them are fighting to save their worlds. 20, Sparrow versus Anna. Hey, if it isn't the 2 supporting characters that barely show up that everyone loves and wish got more to do even though they kind of struggle to have a place. That we still love anyway. These two worked together against Misael, and although they lost, I think it'd be interesting had they dueled ahead of time since both of them have been inspired by Yuma but completely different reasons. You got a superhero actor and a crazy gadget tech maker who uses trains. What's not to love? Also, if Anna did ever decide to move on from Yuma, Sparrow's not really a bad choice for a boyfriend. 19, Ryo and Shark versus Abyss. Okay, complaining time. Ryo needs more duels in season 4 and 5 especially, but one of the more annoying aspects was that because Abyss was tied to both of them, they had both of their number cards that they had to fight him to get, but Shark literally got to fight to get both of them while Ryo was possessed instead of just having Abyss be a spirit that fights both of them, so both of them can earn their own number cards. I complained about this twice on the channel already before, so I'm not going to hold my breath too much, but yeah, Ryo wants to protect Shark and not be seen as a damsel, so you know, let her protect her brother and have them win together. 18, Vector versus Dawn 1000. Okay, final bosses in Yu-Gi-Oh! With the exception of I and maybe Sartorius tend to barely have more than 2 duels that they win before facing off against a protagonist that they will lose to. And this is not going to be the first time I bring this up, but if you want to give Dawn 1000 another person to beat, have him duel as top general he was already going to kill and absorb. Just seal the deal with a duel and you get the same thing that happens. 17, Kazuma versus Elephas. A question people are confused by is how the heck Yuma's dad got to Astral World, which, Faker's influence. But I think the bigger question is, why did Elephas try to keep him stuck there for a while or just didn't let him leave? And it easily could have been that he was just studying Astral World in case they had to break the Numeron field, or advocating for Yuma and wanted Yuma to prove himself rather than just guiding him. But I think it would have been interesting if it was revealed that when he got there, they dueled in order to test Kazuma's intentions while he stays there to try and understand order and chaos. Plus, calling Elephas a good guy is a bit of a stretch, but in terms of power, he is the closest the good guys have to a big good, so giving him a few more wins would actually make sense. 16, Yuma versus Ryo. Not the first time you're going to hear me talk about these two as a duo, but she's one of the few members of Yuma's group that can fight the Baryons, and Baryons herself that she never fought, and she was always grateful for him for helping her brother out, so I feel like a duel between them would actually make sense, regardless of what place it takes in, because pre-season 6, there probably won't necessarily be any problems, but post-season 6, well, okay, after season 5, Yuma wouldn't try to kill her anyway, but I think it'd be a fun one. 15, Durbe versus Vector in season 4. Okay, so now is the perfect time to talk about this. You know I said earlier that Durbe or Dermon was going to be talked about a lot. Take this with a grain of salt, but from what I heard, Japanese fans kind of see him as completely incompetent because he's supposed to be the leader of the Baryons, but he doesn't have much control of his subordinates and his strategy is not working. The fact that he didn't get that many duels, especially since his first Focus episode kind of had him powerless. And apparently over here in the West, people see him as one of the more boring Baryons, although some people just like him as a guy failure. I mean, I like the guy and his loyalty, I just wish he got a few more duels. So why Vector in season 4? Well, you know how Vector basically used a fake puppet to duel Yuma and kidnap Rei? I think if we saw Durbe duel him after realizing Vector was responsible and beat him, only for it to be revealed it was a fake, it heightened the tension between these two, especially since Durbe prefers Nash as a leader anyway, and so does everyone. 14, Nash versus Kaito. Remember regular Shark and Shark with Baryon powers completely on different sides of the power spectrum. The only reason this didn't happen is because we kind of needed for Kite to have his rematch with Misael. Not to mention, he was kind of drained fighting Heartland. But yeah, it's interesting how for season 1, they were on opposite sides, and then on season 2, they ended up on opposite sides, only to not duel each other until they ended up working together, even though one of them was dead. The clash between Yuma's most personal rivals at their strongest would easily make anyone's list, which is why it's here. 13, 4 versus 5. This is not going to be the first time I talk about 5, but everyone kind of agrees he kind of would have benefited from more duels. And let's assume that 3 is the weakest, followed by 4 and then 5. Have 5 beat 4 and a quick duel, which would further synthesize 4's sanity slippage in order to prove himself, and build up 5 versus Kaito, since 5 didn't get a win until much later on in the series. Alright, 12, Tori versus Orbital 7. Okay, y'all remember episode 90, the one where Orbital dueled Yuma because he fell in love with Lilybot after Lilybot stayed with him after the events of the first season before the World Duel Carnival? Well, okay, to be fair, Orbital thought that Lily was abducted by Yuma, and normally I would not want to take away a duel from Yuma that has him dueling without the numbers and winning, but I feel like Tori would be the right fit for this one because she's the one who helped Orbital become friends with Lilybot. Not to mention, it's not a number duel, so Tori's got a better chance of winning. She's the only girl who confessed to her man, so her winning and confess it and, motivating the bot to do the same kind of writes itself. 11, Kazuma versus Faker or Kazuma versus Tron. Well, this one's pretty obvious. They were all friends at one point, and while I think Kazuma considers them friends, just disappointed at Faker's actions, Kazuma having to fight one of his former friends at some point would actually line up. Tron, probably between the events of season 3 and 4, could probably duel him in order to purge himself from some of the negative influence of the Baryon's powers, with the help of order Kazuma acquired. Meanwhile, Kazuma confronting Faker about his actions would add up to be an interesting duel between the fathers of the hero and the rival. We shouldn't really get a chance to see that often because most dads in Yu-Gi-Oh! Are kinda dead. 10, Tori versus Ryo. This one's pretty obvious. We got the lead girl and the secondary girl. I'm not 100% sure Tori had asked Ryo to teach her how to duel better, but considering that she got her butt whooped in the tag tournaments, having Ryo train Tori into becoming a better duelist a la Sora training Yuzu would be pretty interesting. The two basically became a duo by season 5 anyway, and hey, they'd probably give Tori another duel to see how far she comes. Nueve, Charlie versus Faker. Like I said, not an ideal list in order, but I think this one could be fun, especially since people complain Charlie kind of disappeared or that he was too old for Akari, which, fair enough on both of those fronts. But like I said, Faker needed a few more duels to cement him as the big threat, especially since he's supposed to be the final boss of season 1. So let him go after Charlie since he knows that he's associated with Kazuma and tries to take his number, only for it to be revealed that after Yuma helped him out with his sister, he gave Yuma the number card, clearing up that plot hole. Or, well, not really plot hole. We could kind of assume that happened in between episodes, but you know how Yu-Gi-Oh fans are when it comes to shows they don't like. Ryo versus 4 is my 8th pick. One of the most wasted ideas of opportunities was that in the present, Ryo never got to meet 4, aka the person responsible for setting her on fire until the final episodes of the show, and they don't even speak on screen until Duel Links, which, considering that it was an accident and he generally didn't want to hurt her, you don't think there would have been some opportunity for them to team up against anyone in a duel or duel each other so she can get the full story or at least get his perspective, or a fair rematch to see who would actually win? So why did you take the opportunity? 7. Yuma and or Roku versus 5/Quentin. Why the heck is Roku on this list, some of you might be asking, and it's because, well, after the duel that Yuma and Kite had against 3 and 4, 5 told Yuma about his father being alive in Astral World, leaving him torn about collecting the numbers to help Astral find his dad or cure Haruto's illness. But Roku challenged Yuma to remind him about his love for dueling, and considering a few episodes later is going to have Yuma versus 3, that episode would have been perfect to have Yuma fight 5, or if he wasn't in a good mood, have 5 intend to fight Yuma now that he's not in the mood. So Roku either jumps into the duel to help him turn into a 2v1, or Roku duels in place of Yuma to get his spirits up. Either way you look at it, it would have been a pretty unpredictable result, and I would find that interesting, especially since we were hyped up to see it in the opening and it didn't happen. Number 6, Faker versus Misael. One of the criticisms that people have of Kaito is that he doesn't have anything to do outside of helping Yuma get to Astroworld in the second half of the series. So if it was revealed that Misael had attacked Faker to try to get to Kaito in season 4, but Kaito was out, a duel where Misael went after and defeated someone that Kaito cares about would mirror how Misael's past life died fighting people who were going after someone he cared about, and add a bit more tension to the Misael versus Kaito rivalry. Number 5, Faker versus Vectrix or Tron. Just wanted to make this one pretty brief, but usually in order to hype up one villain, usually have 2 villains battle each other out to show why one is the bigger bad. So having Faker defeat Tron after the Yuma versus Tron duel kind of writes itself, especially given the history between these two. 4, Elephas versus Dawn Thousand. Please let me know if I've been pronouncing his name wrong the whole time. This one is pretty easy to talk about. Both of them are the gods and devils of the astral and Baryon worlds respectively, with one trying to protect their world while the other wants to either destroy or invade the others, and basically send Astral to destroy the Baryon world. So since Dawn Thousand kind of needs a win, let him be Elephas. Then Elephas uses the loss to have his spirit break the Numeron field. Still works, but gives more weight for Yuma and Astral to beat him. 3, Nash versus Elephas. Okay, this one is practically simple. Elephas hates chaos and wants Baryon World destroyed. Nash realizes he wants to protect Baryon World because those are his natural people, and most of them just want to live or return into Baryons because of Dawn Thousand's influence. We have the good guy loosely advocating for elimination, with the villain advocating for just keeping his people safe. It's a great matchup showing the two extremes and mentalities of two people who see themselves in the right for mostly understandable reasons. Number 2, Ryo versus Durbe or Yuma and Ryo versus Durbe. This one's pretty obvious. Yuma never got a chance to even duel Durbe, has always tried to meet in the middle with him, and the two have been able to work together and both rightfully hate Vector's actions. But with Ryo, she's always close with Durbe to the point where he's followed them on missions with Midoriya numbers connected to both of them. And the funny thing is, Yuma has teamed up with Shark, Kaito, Rei, even Anna and Dextra, and Nistro against either other villains or threats with Baryon powers. But outside of Tori, the only person in the main cast he never did that with against a named villain was Ryo. And Ryo wanted to prove herself against the Baryons, so let's either have Ryo versus Durbe, because regardless of the result, the connection is going to lead them down a path somewhere, or have Durbe duel them both and realize Yuma's strength and Ryo's determination comes from their bond with others, furthering his goal to get Nash back since he's more of a proper leader. 1, Nash versus Tron/Vectrix. Oh, Nash versus Tron, particularly after Nash defeats 4, would hit so damn hard, especially with the role reversal. Tron used his own sons as tools to even replace Shark with, thanks to the Baryons, only for Nash to fight as a Baryon with no control, while Tron's own sons are fighting on the front lines to protect others. The conversation between these two, especially given Tron works with Kazuma to stabilize the worlds, would hit so hard, especially if Tron decides to apologize to Nash for his actions, and while Nash probably wins this, it would still be compelling from a character perspective. Okay, I think that's it. Yeah, I could have done some obvious ones like, hey, let's put someone in a numbers club against one another. Kathy probably beats Story, though. And I really wish we saw some of the friendship game tag battles, although I guess that would leave that under off-screen battles that we wish we saw, but I probably have to double-check all of the series in order to make a proper list like that. But it would be fun. Still, I'm so glad I did this. Until 7, Zexal was the most consistent in story and pacing. Something 5Ds' middle kind of struggled with, but I had a blast, and you guys let me know which duels you think would actually be pretty cool and which ones you think I was just messing around with. Don't say I never give you all anything, though. But let's celebrate Zexal's 15th anniversary together. Thanks for watching, and BIP Bizarre Interest Productions, signing off. Man, wouldn't it be funny if I got this to 15 minutes for the 15th anniversary? Also, thank you for 1,600 subs.